The console war between Nintendo and Sega back in the early 90s wasn't only relegated to consoles. The two brands fought it out for the best games, calling each other out in advertising, and even competed in another gaming market, portable handhelds. Nintendo released their Game Boy on July 31st, 1989, and started the long-forgotten handheld war of the day. Atari answered first with their Lynx, which gave more than the desired Game Boy with color and better graphics, but it never really caught on with the gaming public. But when it was time for Sega to answer the call, they answered simply with, skip the boy and get the gear. It's the Sega Game Gear. This full-color portable wasn't the first to come around as Atari beat them to it, but nobody got on board with the bulky Bobcat and waited patiently for what the hippest hedgehogs had to fight off Nintendo's pea-soup plumber boys. Not sure if I meant these to sound like bad baseball team names, but you get the idea. The Game Gear was released in April of 1991 as Sega's first handheld and primary competition to Nintendo's Game Boy. Both are, of course, very different in size and original price, as the Gear commanded a higher price because of its color screen. But there are some similarities between them. I mean, they were both made to emulate their first US consoles for portable use, Game Boy for NES, and Game Gear for SMS. And that's where the similarities end, really. Not only do I have the standard gray version, but I also have the blue version, which to my knowledge are the only two Game Gear variants to be released in the States. Plenty of other versions were released in Japan with some white, yellow, and Coca-Cola red making the rounds, and in the UK a golden diamond variant made by David Morris International was valued at £55,000. The ultimate present for the children of the super rich is what they said, and that is something I am not. Taking a closer look at the handheld, on the left we have the D-pad that's nice and round, which is what you really want for directional input. You also have some indents around the pad to keep your thumb level and make sure it doesn't lose its place. Below is the speaker, which is adequate. It does what it's supposed to do. Whether it's good or bad is very depending by ear and condition of some Game Gears, as my gray one is worn out. However, my blue one works fine, and I will say the speaker is nothing like the Supervision's, and that's always a plus. To the right we have the blue start button and the 1 and 2 buttons instead of A and B to better differentiate themselves from the competition. There's also indents here as well to help your thumb slide from button to button without issue. On the bottom we have two things to put a wrist strap on for either of your hands. No idea how I was supposed to move on from there. But I do know how to carry on from here, and that is going to the top of the system to find all the smaller things of note. Starting from the left we have the volume adjuster, the headphone jack, and the external connector for multiplayer use, among other things. If you so happen to have the blue cover to go with the blue Game Gear, you're a lucky person. And on the right we have the AC adapter and the power switch to turn it on and off. There's also a brightness adjuster on the side to adjust the backlight on the screen, but it seems like the other switches and holes didn't want it on the top lane, so they booted it off to the left side. That's dial list. On the back is not one but two battery compartments. The Game Gear takes 6 AA batteries, 3 in each compartment, and can last up to maybe 5 hours, about the same as the Atari Lynx, which isn't a step up at all from the Game Boy. Both of these color systems had a problem drinking up battery juice, and both companies even took it a step further by marketing battery packs for longer playtime and power. Some may even attach to these indents and screw, but these were reserved for other accessories like the TV tuner. And you heard me right, you could watch cable TV on your Game Gear if you had the right signal. But we all bought this system to play its good and colorful games, so why not plop one of them into the slot, turn it on, and get playing? The Game Gear has its own library of 8-bit titles, which are mostly filled with Genesis ports like Columns and Echo the Dolphin, and Master System ports like Fantasy Zone and Aerial Assault. But it wasn't just filled to the brim with ports, as it had its own exclusives like GG Shinobi, Sonic Labyrinth, and Tails Adventure, which guarantee the best graphics, color, and gameplay if you have enough batteries to spare. The Game Gear was an easy alternative to Nintendo's Game Boy, but not that very effective. Sure, the die-hard Sega fans must have all grabbed one of these bulky cement pieces when it was new, but the Game Boy took the whole portable scene by storm and it left all the other competition in its wake. However, if you do so happen to find a Game Gear out in the wild, you should pick it up and experience Sega on the go as they try to take on Nintendo in the handheld battleground, where their strongest selling points caused it to suck itself dry of batteries. It's the Sega Game Gear. Even though Sega failed to capitalize on the handheld market's craving for color graphics with efficient batteries, it didn't stop them from innovating again, as one of their products sold only for Japanese airlines became one of the long line of items that kept the Genesis alive. And on the next episode, we're going to see where Sega had the audacity to boldly go where no gaming company had gone before. Besides NEC. If you think I missed anything, please leave a comment. If you like what you see, leave a like. If you think others could get knowledge out of this, share this video. And if you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Now if you'll excuse me, nostalgia is calling.